The Kooks are a British rock band formed in Brighton, East Sussex, in 2004. The band consists of Luke Pritchard, Hugh Harris, Alexis Nunez, and Peter Denton. The lineup of the band remained constant until the departure of Rafferty in 2008. Logan served as a temporary replacement, until Peter Denton joined the band permanently in October 2008. Early in 2010, Pritchard announced the departure of drummer Paul Garred, due to a nerve problem in his arm. Late in the year, Garred rejoined for studio sessions, however Chris Prendergast played drums when the band played live. In 2012, the band was accompanied on drums by Alexis Nunez, who eventually joined the band full-time. A self-described pop band, their music is primarily influenced by the 1960s British invasion movement and post-punk revival of the new millennium. With songs described as catchy as hell, the Kooks have experimented in several genres including rock, Britpop, pop, reggae, ska, and more recently, funk and hip-hop, being described once as a more energetic Thrills or a looser Sam Roberts band, maybe even a less severe Arctic Monkeys at times. Signed to Virgin Records just 3 months after forming, the Kooks broke into the musical mainstream with their debut album Inside and Inside Out. The album was ultimately successful, achieving quadruple platinum status in the UK within a year and also overseas in the form of a platinum certification in Australia and 2 times platinum in Ireland. The Kooks found themselves entering into mainstream media attention, with the band winning the award for Best UK and Ireland Act at the MTV Europe Music Awards 2006 and picking up a nomination at the Brit Awards for the single She Moves in Her Own Way. With their follow-up Conk debuting at #1 on the UK Albums Chart, it recorded first-week sales of 65,000, achieving gold status in both the UK and Ireland. Their third studio album, entitled Junk of the Heart, was released on September 12, 2011. After years of inactivity in order to find themselves, their new album Listen is scheduled to be released on September 1, 2014. History, formation and early years. The original members of the Kooks all met as students at the Brighton Institute of Modern Music in 2002. The inspiration to form a band came to Pritchard as he and Garred were out shopping for clothes one day in Primark as a joke. Speaking to MTV, Garred said, "We had this vision on how we wanted the band to look and stuff for Euro, so we bought some clothes and these hats, it was fun." Sharing a love of the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, The Police, and David Bowie, Pritchard got Harris and Rafferty involved under the guise of a school music project. Pritchard himself said, "We got together just on a whim, really." With a strong demo of their material, Garred and Pritchard went in search of a gig, and according to Garred, they were able to book their first show simply because the landlord liked their hats. "So we went in to get a gig, we don't have a demo blid burnt, and this guy told us, well, you can't get a gig if you don't have a demo, but I like your hats, so I'm going to give you a gig," said Garred. However, the band was unable to make the performance as they were finishing off their demo at the time. Taking their name from the famous David Bowie song with the same title, Pritchard revealed the first song they ever played as a group was a cover version of the Strokes' song Reptilia. The Kooks recorded an EP demo, sending it out in search of gigs. They instead received offers from managers and record companies. The band had only been together as a group for 4 months when they signed with Virgin Records, after being spotted by several label scouts at the Brighton Freebird Festival in 2005. In an interview with Musicum.com, Pritchard revealed, "It was really quick how it all happened. We did a demo with a mate of ours in London, which we sent off to one guy to get some gigs, and he turned out to be a manager. He rung us up and it kind of went from there." The members of the band have since revealed that they felt they were in a Euro unregistered trademark T ready at the time. "We were way too early to sign a record deal. We were really young, we'd been together like 2 or 3 months, so we really didn't want to sign. But then we thought it's a really good opportunity and Virgin seemed like really cool people, they just seemed to really understand where we were coming from," said Pritchard, who has also complimented the space the record label allowed for the band to grow. "They were patient with us and let us develop our style, whatever it was." Inside and Inside Out. After they had signed to Virgin Records, the Kooks were reluctant to record an album straight away, stating a desire to focus more on their live performances and songwriting. The band has said embarking on their first live tour instead of recording an album initially helped them develop their style and sound. As Pritchard claimed, "We didn't unregistered trademark T sit down with a blueprint. We just naturally developed and we didn't unregistered trademark T try to shape or mold ourselves to anything." As a result, they went into the studio with hundreds of songs from a variety of genres, and it took an incredible amount of patience from producer Tony Hoffer to shape the content into what would become the record. Following their first tour supporting the Thrills, the Kooks recorded their debut album, Inside and Inside Out, at Kooks Studios in London in 2005. Though media attention was dominated by the release of the Arctic Monkeys' debut album Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I Am Not on the same day, Inside and Inside Out recorded first-week sales of 19,098. Later speaking to NME, Pritchard would thank the Arctic Monkeys for shielding the Kooks from the press scrutiny. "God bless the Arctic Monkeys, because if it wasn't for them we wouldn't have been so shielded. We were so overshadowed by the success of it because it was so monster and we crept in behind everybody's back." Entering the UK album chart at number 9, it would eventually peak at number 2 for 2 weeks. Singles at unregistered trademark S Gun, Sofa Song, Eudonia unregistered trademark T Love Me, Norway, She Moves in Her Own Way, and Ula achieved chart success in the UK and Europe, while Norway, and She Moves in Her Own Way put the Kooks in the top 10 for the first time. Kev Carers in his review for Drowned in Sound viewed the Kooks as a less irreverent and more melodic art brute, swapping that band unregistered trademark S caustic wit for a far nicer type of honesty. Carers also noted traces of emo in the band unregistered trademark S style. Alma 6 Tim Sendra noted that the band's direction was heavily indebted to classic rock, in particular Thin Lizzy and the Dexys. Ultimately though, Sendra felt the band sounds like the Kooks and no one else, calling the Kooks an important reminder that there are just as many mediocre bands in the UK as there are in the United States. Reviewer Jenny Elascu of Rolling Stone claimed the album was utterly forgettable, shoddily produced retro rock that at its worst sounds like a Brighton accented version of the Spin Doctors. Brian Bellardi of Prefix gave a positive review, describing Inside and Inside Out as an almost perfect blend of 60s-style Britpop, 90s-style Britpop, and the post-punk of the new millennium. The album went on to be certified quadruple platinum in the UK by the British Phonographic Industry, BPI, within a year, and certified platinum across Europe by the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, IFPI. The success of their debut album brought the band into mainstream media attention, winning the award for Best UK and Ireland Act at the MTV Awards in 2006 and picking up a Brit Awards nomination for She Moves in Her Own Way, in 2007. Rafferty's departure and conk. Rafferty was fired from the band on January 31, 2008, after a series of absences due to illness and long-standing rumours about his place in the band. Drug addiction was also quoted as one of the reasons for his departure. Dan Logan, bassist with a local Brighton band Cat the Dog, was drafted in as a temporary replacement for Rafferty. After the departure of Rafferty, the band had considered splitting up. Singer Luke Pritchard had told The Sun something for the weekend that splitting does go through your mind. It's hard to let go of something you care about so much. We have fans to think of. Pritchard also discussed the possibility of Dan Logan joining the band as their new bassist. It's been really strange for us, but it's something that had to happen. Dan hasn't unregistered trademark T joined the band properly yet. We're trying him out, but I love playing with him. In the end, Logan did not join the band on a permanent basis. Instead, in October 2008, Peter Denton was drafted into the band and has become the permanent bassist. The Kooks released their second album, Conk, in April 2008. The record was named after the studio where it was recorded and produced by Tony Hoffer, who worked on the band's debut album, Inside and Inside Out. Prior to releasing the album, in an interview with NME, lead singer Luke Pritchard had claimed to have 80 to 90 songs written for the album, stating, I want this album to be big euro I've got an ego, I want the album to do well. I want our singles to come on the radio and for people to literally have their heads blown off by them. Recorded over a total of 7 weeks in London and Los Angeles, Pritchard told NME the band had wanted more input into their second album. "Tony's a genius, but this time we wanted more involvement in the production," said Pritchard. Konk went on to debut on the UK Albums Chart at number 1 with first week sales of 65,901 units. The album also spawned 3 top 50 hits including their highest chart performer to date, Always Where I Need to Be, which peaked at number 3. In the United States, it reached number 41 on the Billboard 200 and the album's first single, Always Where I Need to Be, peaked at number 22 on the Alternative Songs chart. The album was certified gold in both the UK and Ireland. A second limited edition 2-disc version of Konk entitled RAK was also released. The name was taken from the London studio where the Kooks recorded 7 new live tracks along with the Arctic Monkeys and Mike Crosby, producer for the Zootons. Allmusic said with Konk, the Kooks explores pop and rock in all their glory, while BBC Music described their second album as a little contrived with a recycling of old guitar lines and intros. NME suggested the departure of Alan Lavian affected Konk's production, stating Konk is the sound of a band in disarray, unsuccessfully attempting to hold things together. Junk of the Heart. In April 2009, the Kooks revealed to BBC's Newsbeat that they were working on their third studio album. Drummer Paul Garred left the band in late 2009, due to a nerve problem in his arm, and was temporarily replaced initially by Nicholas Millard from the band Crackout, then Chris Prendergast for live shows, and then Alexis Nunez. However, Paul returned for the recording sessions in late 2010, while continuing to not tour with the band, as Pritchard recently stated his injury turned more into a psychological thing, whereby he feels uncomfortable playing for long periods of time for fear of his arm flaring up. One of the band's first main attempts at writing for this album together took place away from their usual surroundings, as frontman Luke Pritchard told Newsbeat, "We kind of barricaded ourselves in the countryside for a few weeks stayed at some friends who have a cottage in Norfolk." However, the band recently revealed that over 2 weeks there, the band only managed to make one new song, Eskimo Kiss. After hiring and firing new producer Jim Abyss despite having some really good sessions together, the band returned to old producer Tony Hoffer who gave them a new direction, and they recorded the album in a more contemporary style to previously. In January 2011, Pritchard announced that they had recorded 14 new tracks. The band announced via social media that they finished the final touches on March 30. Finally, the album name was announced as Junk of the Heart and tracklist details released, with a release date of September 12, 2011 for the UK. The album was produced by Tony Hoffer. The first single taken from the album is titled Is It Me in Europe and Junk of the Heart elsewhere. They released the album Junk of the Heart in 2011, and have been touring since. This includes headlining the Groove in the Moo concert tour in Australia, in April and May 2013. They have recently returned to the studio to work on their fourth album. Listen. On April 20, 2014 they released a new single titled Down. Their new album, Listen, is due to be released on September 1, 2014. According to reports, singer Luke Pritchard and 25-year-old London-based hip-hop producer and Flo share co-producing credits. This is their first album with new drummer Alexis Nunez. In an interview in July, Pritchard stated that Listen includes more improvisation and found that I thought kind of fearlessness when you make the first album kind of crept back in a Euro musical style and influences. Self-described whores, the Kooks have drawn on a number of varied sources to create their indie pop sound. Listing the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Bob Dylan and Chris de Burgh among their influences, the band have gradually developed both their songwriting style and musical presentation over the course of their 3 albums. The band's debut album Inside In Inside Out was touted as a typical Britpop record, owing influence to the Libertines, Thin Lizzy, The Police and containing elements of the 60s unregistered trademark Britpop movement. Furthermore, Pritchard, a unregistered trademark-esque lyrical style was compared to that of a younger, less pathetic version of Pete Doherty's mush mouth style. The band themselves felt the album was not consistent in its direction. The first record was definitely genre-hopping. The first album was finding its feet, it was gayed-about, claimed Harris in an interview with Nadine Regan for the Sunday Business Post. On the follow-up Conk, the band attempted to find a more mature and polished sound. Drawing on a much wider choice of material for the album, the band began to incorporate more a hard-edged rock focus into their music. Critics drew comparisons to the work of the Kinks throughout the album, it being recorded at the studio owned by Ray Davies. Also noted were the band unregistered trademark-esque growing similarities in musical direction to the Fratellis, a unregistered trademark, and the Arctic Monkeys. The band commented on the album a unregistered trademark-esque style, "I think we've made a dynamic album," Pritchard said. "Every song has its own character. It's a good pop album." The most recent album, Listen, includes much more percussion and cross rhythms than previous material. Pritchard described the band's most recent album Listen as a percussion sonnets only the first couple albums I made I never really thought about rhythms, I focused on the recording and the lyrics, Pritchard said. Personnel, current, Luke Pritchard lead vocals, rhythm guitar, acoustic guitar, Hugh Harris lead guitar, keys, piano, backing vocals, Peter Denton bass, backing vocals, acoustic guitar, Alexis Nunez, drums and percussion, former, Max Rafferty bass, backing vocals, Paul Garred, drums and percussion, touring, Nicholas Millard, drums and percussion, Dan Logan bass, backing vocals, Chris Prendergast, drums and percussion, Denny Weston, drums, Tom Kirkpatrick, synthesizer, Jack Berkeley, guitar, percussion, backing vocals, discography. Inside and Inside Out, Conk, Junk of the Heart, Listen, references. External links, official website, The Kooks on Facebook.